So I want to talk a little bit more about this book I've been reading by Thompson, Mind in Life. It's basically, well, it's a little bit of everything. It's trying to, in the most general sense, understand consciousness, or to point us in the direction that any science of consciousness ought to be heading. Um, so it's an embodied account of consciousness, which is um, in one sense, a materialist account, a naturalistic account of consciousness. But on the other hand, it's not going to be an account of consciousness in objective terms or third person terms, as though consciousness were another object in the world to be measured um, scientifically in the standard sense of scientific empiricism, because consciousness isn't what is sensing, or excuse me, consciousness isn't what we sense, consciousness is what is sensing. So it's a whole nother kind of investigation, not exactly empirical, though what do we really mean by empirical? You know, what is our sense experience? What is the relation between our sense experience and our full sense of experience? Um, Hume and Kant assume that the foundation of our experience is sensory, and it's just made of these discrete sensory uh, facts that exist independently of one another. Colors, shapes, sizes, whatever. And we infer, based just on that, the whole phenomenal world, but it's mostly an assumption that we make that, causality is real, for example, that this patch causes that patch. We don't actually see that happen, we just infer it. But Whitehead, on the other hand, reversed this picture and said that sensory experience is not the base of our experience. It's actually, it comes later than our experience of causality, which we directly feel in our bodies. As our bodies, we feel the past state of the universe through our bodies, of course. But our body is made of the atoms that they are, that have their own history. Matter wasn't given as some fixed set of mechanical laws. Matter grew, it developed, it has a genesis. Just like our bodies as a whole have evolved. So there's this perpetual becoming, creativity going on, but it's restrained by the past. So in other words, that's the basis of our experience, is feeling the entire past and projecting into the future based on the past, structured in many important ways and determined in many important ways by the past, but still capable of free action. Whitehead rooted the material and efficient cause of the universe now in experience just as much as the formal and final causes, the formal, what we become in each moment, and the final, what we become for, the thing that we project in front of ourselves that allows us to continually transcend our own ability to live or be conscious. We project on and try to decide, and which means to settle the future. So instead of bare discontinuous sensory impressions like Hume and Kant, Whitehead says we have the entire history of the universe as our basic prehension or feeling at the beginning of every moment, and we base our response on that history. Think about how powerful that whole cosmic history is. I'm talking about from the Big Bang through the development of hydrogen and stars and heavier elements in solar systems and planets with life like us. Um, matter, energy, the stuff of reality has been through all of that, arriving here and now, and you continue that same process consciously in every moment. And what you see, what your eyes feel as the world, has in itself all of that history, and it's looking at that same history from a particular perspective. But it is still that universe looking at itself, and so the sense of the world comes after the initial relationship is already there. So we don't have to infer causality, we directly feel causality. If I slam my toe into the cabinet, it's going to hurt. I know this because of cause and effect. It's really effect, E-F-F-E-C-T, and affect, A-F-F-E-C-T, are rather similar or even synonymous, really. So, anyways, back to Thompson. Instead of trying to explain consciousness as something separate from the body, he wants to say that bodily life, organic existence in general, any living organism, is a conscious process. The body, any body, a single cell, is a conscious process, or sentient process. It feels a world and responds. And the response isn't free entirely. It's based on a past, but it uses that past as a support to leap into the future in a creative and spontaneous way, a way which can't be predicted and is never really satisfied. We talk about this law of entropy, the second law of thermodynamics, as though it were true of nature generally. But where did we derive this law? Well, we derived it from an experiment in a laboratory where we trap atoms in containers and basically measure the statistical pattern which results of their behavior. And when trapped in this particular way, atoms tend toward disorder or toward equilibrium. But it seems to me to be a similar phenomenon there to where when you put wild animals in a zoo or in a cage, they tend to go crazy, or certainly not to behave as though they were in the wild. You wouldn't, as a ethologist, want to be studying chimpanzees in a zoo if you were trying to get an understanding of the species chimpanzee, independent of human zoos at least. The zoo as an institution institutionalizes the animal in a similar way. The laboratory has a very contrived circumstance, a very specific circumstance, in fact, contains atoms, forcing them to exhibit a particular type of behavior, which is in fact not the general way that they do behave. The general way that matter behaves is, life. Here I am, matter and energy in some relationship. Life is the dominant material paradigm, not atoms.